Okay, so it's time to get our kumquats in the ground. That's up next. Hello everyone, this is Dwayne with Edge of Nowhere Farm, and we're coming to you today. It is Saturday, April 4th, 2020. So what we're going to bring you guys today is another planting video, and this one we are actually going to be getting our 4 kumquat trees out of pots and into the ground. So let's talk a little bit about where I'm at now, where we're going to be planting, and specifically what varieties we have that are going in the ground today. Okay, so where are we? You can kind of see, if Lori wants to pan that way, you'll see the house there in the background. So we're over here on the west side of the property. You guys can see our coop and run here. So we have our chickens housed, our laying hens at least, housed right behind us. And then of course, down this way here, I'll link the video where we talked a little bit about protecting all of our plant starts over the winter before we got our fencing up from cows. And you'll see where we have our potted leftovers at this point. So the 4 varieties that we're going to be working with today are the Centennial, the Miwa, the Fukushu, and the Nagami. So those are the 4 varieties we have in pots that we need to get into the ground. So let's talk a little bit about the supplies we're going to need to get those trees from those pots into their permanent home right here at the front of the chicken run. You can see pretty much our standard stuff. In fact, I'll link the video here where we planted our honey mandarin, which is probably about 20 yards or so from me right now. But it's basically the same thing. Now, what we do plan on doing a little bit with these trees is we do plan on amending the soil just a little bit more than we typically would. So what I like is this Kellogg's brand garden soil. It's an organic product. You get it from Home Depot or Lowe's. Pretty inexpensive. We won't be amending heavily, but you'll see a light amendment to the soil around these trees to help get them established. One of the reasons for that is we are really late on getting our trees in the ground. And that's mainly because we had to protect our trees from cows, had a lot of infrastructure to do, and now we're finally getting to planting. So not ideal that we're planting here in Arizona here the first week of April. However, because of that, I am going to amend the soil just a little bit more than we typically would. So we have that. We do use a gas-powered auger in order to dig the holes. So we got that as well. And of course, your miscellaneous tools. We will be doing a little bit of fertilizing around the trees because they are established trees in those pots. We want to make sure that they start rooting out right away. So we'll be using that. Also some vitamin B1, again, to try to get that root growth going quickly because we're so late. So again, not necessarily something we would typically use, but we are going to go ahead and use today. So really what we need to really kind of focus on now is where we're planting these and why. So that's going to be right there. Let's take a look at that. A little bit better angle. You can see this is our chicken run in the background where we have our laying hens. Behind Lori would be the front of the farm. So we're not very far. There's only, I think we're about 50 feet to 60 feet or so between the end of this chicken run and the property line. Now, one of the things that Lori was very specific on when it came to the look of the farm as you drive up is she wanted evergreens. So we have it planned so that all of our citrus trees are going to be right behind Lori there. And then we have a little bit of a gap between that and our actual run. Second thing is, Lori was not a huge fan of our chicken coop that we built out of pallets. It's a little junky in Lori's terms, so she wanted to block that a little bit. So we figured just to make sure we kind of get them enclosed here, we would go ahead and give a little bit of kind of a privacy hedge, so to speak, of kumquat trees. So what we're going to do is we're going to double plant those 4 kumquat trees right here, right across the front of this. So as far as the exact placement, we're going to figure that out as we go. However, we have our standard half-gallon per minute bubblers down in the ground, and we're going to put 2 trees on one of those bubblers because your kumquat trees are actually kind of a dwarf / semi-dwarf tree, really more on the dwarfing side. So putting them a little close together will help kind of shore up that hedge look that we're really going for. So I think we're ready now to go ahead and get some holes dug. So we're going to get the auger fired up, get some holes in the ground, and also figure out exactly what the trees are going to look like as far as placement. So you'll see us kind of moving around a little bit with the hand truck to get them placed, and then of course digging these holes. So let's go ahead and get to it. Okay, so we're done. So what you didn't see on camera is we did come back and we did dig these out just a bit more. The auger does a great job of digging circles, small ones about 8 inches in diameter. We needed a much bigger diameter circle for these guys. So we came back through, dug these out. They're quite deep actually, and that's because we're going to be amending some soil. So we did dig these a little bit further than we typically would. So now what you're going to see me do is use the garden soil. I have it behind me here. Again, that is the Kellogg's organic garden soil. We're just going to use this as a basic amendment. You can get this at any Home Depot or Lowe's. Again, very easy for you to grab. As far as the amount, you can see I have these piles split up in about half. So we'll amend half of this, probably about 50-50 or so. And the other half we'll just use as fill wherever we need it. Again, don't need to do a lot in the way of amendments, but we just want to make sure that these older trees are comfy and at home in here. One other thing I want to show you before we get these trees in the ground, let's peek over at what we needed to pull out of these pots in order to get down to the root flare. This is our Centennial variety. Not much in the way of fruit. There's a few pieces of green fruit. We do see that this one really does leave out really well, and I do have some flowers, so it's doing great. Now what you didn't see, we did take a good amount of wood chips out. You'll see there was some soil being created down at the bottom where the wood chips meet the soil level. But I'm going to have Lori slide in here because I want to show you what we're going to be able to do as far as kind of taking care of the sins of the father, so to speak. Slide in a little closer. So now hopefully you can catch this on camera, but you can see this is our root flare here. If you see these are little feeder roots which were coming up to the surface because we had soil that was accumulating above that root flare. Here's the root flare here. You can see it's real obvious where you go from your root stock, which attaches here, comes down here and starts to flare out, just as the name implies. But you can really kind of see it. Hopefully you can pick it up on camera. Our soil level was probably about there. So way too high. So obviously part of that is because it's in a pot, but we really should have come back out and done this a lot sooner with this poor potted tree. We're basically suffocating this guy, and it was sending out feeder roots a little too high. So now obviously that was our mistake. We don't normally put trees in pots, and these are all coming out now. But the good thing is, because we're now putting them in the ground, we can actually correct our error and ensure when we get these in the ground, that root flare is nice and high above the soil line. So now what we're going to do is we're going to get our soil amended, and Lori and I are going to do our best at getting these trees out of these big pots and into the ground. So let's go ahead and get that done now. we are done. You can see we have our 4 kumquat trees out of the pots and into the ground. So there's a couple little challenges in there that we got through, particularly this last one, the Centennial kumquat. So that tree, the pot, so that pot is basically those wine barrels, those inexpensive wine barrels you can typically get from Home Depot and Lowe's. They've been in there for about 2 years or so, and it's completely rotted away the bottom. So when we unpotted that, we went to drop it in, and luckily it wasn't completely straight. We pulled it back out, and lo and behold, there were actually wooden slats that were intertwined with roots on the bottom. So unfortunately, we had to pull that out completely and get all of those wood planks off of the roots and then replant it. But overall, I think it looks pretty good. Now, we're not done yet. We will come back and actually create sort of a figure 8. You can kind of see how it is here, but a nice wide figure 8 that we will be able to water these as a single tree from that ½ gallon per minute bubbler in the middle. So we still have that to do. We will also come back and get wood chips around the rings, because we do want to make sure that immediately around the tree, like we've talked about before, we've got root growth going out from the tree. So overall, I think these look really good. One more time, I want to go ahead and link the video here if I haven't already done it, where we talked about these 4 varieties. I walked you through how each one of them tasted, and I lost count at 40 times I said the word kumquat. So I don't think I said it this many times in this video, but if you want to refer back to that one, you can take a look and see how these taste. I do kind of give a taste test. Also, a couple other things about the immediate area that we're in. So just want to talk a little bit more about how we have them set up. So we did talk about the fact we're going to use the 1 emitter for 2 trees. So we have 2 emitters here. Also, as far as the layout, we're trying to, again, kind of create a hedge going into the chicken run and coop area back there. But also you'll notice that on this side, that Centennial doesn't go all the way over to the fence. Now that's by design. The very corner of the fence right on this side will actually extend out to about where I am here, because all of this area right over here is actually going to be our primary pasture for our pastured broiler chickens. So we'll be running them in through here during the wintertime. Now, of course, there's no pasture there yet, but eventually there will be. So I think what I want to do before I let you guys go is I really want to get our very first harvest. Now, I know these just went in the ground, but as far as I'm concerned, these are trees on the property that are about to produce. So the Miwa is overall my favorite. The Fukushu right next to me is actually very, very good. Very big fruit on there. They're a great balance of tart and sweet, but this one's really my favorite. And I know I've got at least one that's ripe. So let's take a look, get our very first harvest from the new Edge of Nowhere farm. Very good. A few seeds. Not a fan of those. Oh yeah, that's really good. Really good balance of tart and sweet. Love how that tastes. And I'll tell you what, really looking forward to seeing how these 4 trees do as this nice little privacy hedge in front of our coop and run. So just want to thank you for joining us today. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel. Questions or comments, leave those in the comment section down below. Instagram and Facebook, we post content there you won't see here on the YouTube channel. And our Amazon shop, I'll leave a link down in the description. That is a free, painless way to help support the channel. If you start with that link, it doesn't matter what you buy, you help to support us here. So just want to thank you for joining us today and remind you, if we can farm on the edge of nowhere, so can you. They are our kumquat varieties. We have 4 of them. The kumquat varieties we have are I keep saying kumquat. I'm going to say it 50 times again. Nothing. Let's do this. Let's go. And I don't have 50 kumquats in this video. Yes.